Welcome back, guys. We're going to be talking about UFC Sao Paulo, making some picks for this fight night down in Brazil, Luis versus Almeida. Let's get into it. We'll go ahead and get right into it with the main card. Going too far down into the prelims, like there's a couple guys to pay attention to. Elvis Brenner, who trains out of Shootbox with Charles Oliveira, had a crazy fight. His last fight, I believe it was against Guram Kutateladze. If you haven't seen that fight, do yourself a favor on ESPN Plus, go back, watch that fight. Absolutely wild fight. I'm gonna butcher this name, but Rinat Fakhretdinov, he is a problem as well against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. That should be a fun fight. But getting into the main card, we have Ismael Bonfim versus Vinc Pichel. This is a really good fight. Now, Ismael and his brother Gabriel, who are on this card, the Bonfim brothers, are both super talented guys. They're really, really fun to watch. Pichel's an underdog, but I really like his chances in this fight. Vinc Pichel's a really, really talented fighter, both coming off of a loss. Pichel has more wins by KO and TKO and decision, whereas Bonfim has that submission threat and obviously has his KO power as well. Seemed to go for a little bit of grappling, but Pichel kind of has that more like wrestler, take you down, beat you up, grind you out on the fence kind of style, whereas Bonfim is looking to really just finish the fight. In this one, I'm gonna have Sam leaning Ismael Bonfim, but I would not be surprised at all if Vinc Pichel pulled this one out. So I'll go Ismael Bonfim, and we'll say by KO, TKO, go ahead up into the next fight, which is at middleweight between Rodolfo Viera and Armen Petrosyan. Now for this fight, Rodolfo Viera is one of the best Jiujitsu practitioners probably out there. Just a phenomenal grappler. It hasn't really translated over to MMA. One of his fights, I can't remember if it was, I think 2 fights ago, he actually got submitted by a fighter I really like, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. It's one of those things where he really has a hard time getting the takedown, very basic on the feet, and it's really just to set up his takedowns. And he has a lot of holes on the feet too, so if he doesn't get that takedown, it's not a good night for him, let's just put it that way. Whereas Armen Petrosyan, very, very polished kickboxer, not as good on the ground, but definitely has like decent takedown defense. I don't think Viera's been shot on at all. I don't know why you would take him to the ground, but just with the advantage from the feet, I'm definitely picking Petrosyan. Let's go by TKO. Next, another fight in the middleweight division that should be a really fun one. Caio Borralho. Again, butchering these names, my Portuguese is not great, versus Abus Magomedov. So this is Abus's second fight in the UFC. His first fight was against now middleweight champ Sean Strickland, and he came out, he had a really good first round, and I think this first round of this fight is going to be absolutely nuts, like just chaos. But I do think that overall, I think that Caio Borralho is definitely going to be able to get his takedowns, survive on the feet. If he can really weather the storm that first half of that first round, or even the first round entirely, I think this will really swing in his favor. We saw some conditioning issues out of Abus Magomedov in the first round of the Strickland fight. Looked really good. Strickland weathered the storm, and then after that, he just kind of folded. So I'm gonna pick Caio Borralho versus, we'll say by submission. He's really, really good on the ground, and I think he'll have a big grappling advantage if he can get it there. He also wins the Aggressive Throat Tat Award of this card. This next fight at heavyweight, I've not seen either. I've seen Dontel Mays a few times. Brazilian card. If you don't know too much about either guy, let's pick the Brazilian. So I'm gonna pick Rodrigo Nascimento by KO, because, you know, heavyweights. So that'll be my pick there. Won't spend a whole lot of time there. We'll get into our co-main event at welterweight. This fight I'm really excited for. Gabriel Bonfim, undefeated. I think possibly the better of the two Bonfim brothers. They're both very, very good though, and definitely a lot of fun to watch. And they are giving him a tough fight in Nicolas Dalby. Nicolas Dalby, he had a really, really good fight his last time out, coming off a win, and he's one of those guys that's going to be in your face, like bringing a high pace, has that like really grinding, like wear you down, make you tired, has cardio for days kind of style. I think this will be a really good test for Gabriel Bonfim, but I'm still going to pick him. I think by finish, I'm going to say KO. But Gabriel does have some really, really good submission threats as well. Dalby has some good grappling. So I think their takedowns might kind of negate, and we'll see this settled out on the feet. But super looking forward to that fight. The main event, so Jailton Almeida versus Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis is filling in on short notice versus Curtis Blades, or for Curtis Blades, excuse me. That fight I was really excited for. Blades versus Almeida. Really good wrestling in Blades. Really good jiu-jitsu in Almeida. Obviously, I think it's pretty much a classic striker-grappler, right? Striker versus grappler. Your grappler in Almeida. Striker in Derrick Lewis, obviously. But there are some things, like Almeida's really, really good and hasn't really been tested that much at heavyweight yet. And I think we'll know a lot more about Almeida after this fight. But I never really pick against Derrick Lewis. Almeida has a lot of holes on the feet, is very desperate in a lot of ways for the takedowns. I'm going with Derrick Lewis, I think by KO, TKO. We've seen Derrick Lewis hang on the ground or just stand up with really good jiu-jitsu black belts like Roy Nelson. That could be wrong. This is a big underdog pick. I just have a hard time picking against Derrick Lewis because he has that great equalizer. He's very experienced, especially in the UFC. I could see him looking to get him out of there. Picking Derrick Lewis could very well be wrong, but I don't really ever pick against the Black Beast. He's just always fun to watch, win, lose, or draw, and he always brings it, unless he's fighting Francis. Anyways, that is it. My UFC picks. We'll also do a video Monday recapping everything of how the fight nights went. Enjoy the fights. We'll see you guys next week.